just recently, I would say within the last 2 years, within the year anyway, Governor Abercrombie coming in, he essentially organized a new board that reports directly to him as well as the superintendent. So his cabinet is made up just about of the people that run the Department of Education. So the initiatives that you're seeing aren't all a part or started by the state itself, but a culmination, I think, of many efforts by many agencies as they've come down. Now, I know a lot of you have heard of Race to the Top. Race to the Top, right now we have two districts in the state that are involved with Race to the Top funding. Of course, that's that federal money that came down to help schools improve. That would be the KL complex, so you would have, I'm saying only the high schools right now, and of course, you have to remember that there are middle schools and elementary schools that are associated with these high schools. But in this island, one of the zone schools is Keau High School, Pahoa High School, and Ka'u High School, and then all the feeders that feed into it, the middle schools and the elementary. On Oahu, it's the Nanakuli Waianae complex. So you'd have Waianae High School, Nanakuli High School, to name a few, that are feeding, I think Campbell, that are feeding into this particular effort. So those schools were given the monies necessary to make whatever changes they needed to make. So I wanted just to give you that understanding. Everybody else is kind of standing off into the wings waiting. We're dabbling in little areas that are part of the zone schools, but it's not totally involved because it's a budget factor. A lot of money is involved, and that's why the money that came down to the state really is taking the ball and running with it as far as these zone schools. So with that understanding, what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about now is the strategic plan. The state of Hawaii Department of Education with the Board of Education had developed the strategic plan, I would say about a year or so ago. It was developed in conjunction with the department, with the University of Hawaii, Manoa, well actually all the university systems, as well as business partnerships. You might have heard that as the P20 initiative. Recently, the governor has shown an interest in preschools, the need to get students ready as early as preschool as they move through kindergarten on their way up through grade 12, and then beyond that. So the 20 goes beyond grade 12 into the college sector and into the master's area. So there's an effort, this concerted effort by the educational institutions to ensure that the students are in fact college and career ready. So this strategic plan that I'm showing you, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, this is just the cover, but as was mentioned by Joy, you can go online, the DOE website, and you can review the copy, you can even download a copy for yourself to take a look at it. But this strategic plan is what our academic plan, and every school in the state of Hawaii has an academic plan. And the academic plan is based on the strategic plan that the state and the board has established. And as Joy had mentioned, there are three goals within that strategic plan that each school has to adopt for themselves. And unique to that particular school is what they're going to be developing within the plan. She also mentioned a thing called the financial plan. Now the financial plan supports, obviously, the academic plan, but the financial plan, I would say a good 90% of the financial plan, or better, really goes into salaries. The teachers, the educational assistants, the librarians, the security, whatever makes up those particular schools is what the financial plan addresses. So when people say, wow, so how much money are you getting? Well, it might be a lot. It might be anywhere from $1 to $4 million, $6 million, depending on the size of your school. But ultimately, those are what pays for the people that are working in those schools. And the other maybe 8% or so is what pays for other things. For example, utilities, resources, things along those lines. Now, in addition to the financial that you get from the state, you also get support from other entities, federal monies, like for example Title I, Title II, Title III. All of those are monies that come to the school, and a lot of those are based on free and reduced lunch. In other words, individuals that fall under a certain socioeconomic level, the school will get monies to support those children. So that's in addition to what the state provides the schools. Now, the financial plan, I think what's important to know is that it's based on the number of students that you have in your school. In other words, if you have a rather large school, let's take, for example, Hilo High School. We have roughly about 1,400 students. each student is worth so many dollars. And that money is really what supports the school. So the more students you have, the more money you get, in essence. And so that's why it's so critical that schools nowadays are able to compete with, or they're in competition, if you will, with other schools for students. That's why here in Hilo, you'll see schools like Waiakea, or Hilo, or for that matter, Keao. They're always trying to bring students into their schools so they can add more money to their financial plan and perhaps buy more programs and or personnel. It all depends. So that's something that you need to understand about the financial plan. And that's how it works. But it's always going to be, a good percentage of it is always going to be based on paying for your staff members. Okay? So I talked a little bit about the strategic plan, which is available online. And what Joy had talked about was essentially what the goals are. And the goals are 3 of them. And student success, all DOE students demonstrate that they are a path towards success in college and career citizenship. You have to understand now, we are preparing students for the 21st century. What was our time, and I'm looking at the majority of you that are above the age of 18, things have changed over the years in terms of students' abilities, the types of technology that's available. I mean, I talk jokingly about it, but when I was in high school, I was still using a slide rule, and now they've got TI calculators. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but the point is that times have changed, and we have to bring ourselves up to the next level in order to meet those changes so that the students themselves are competitive as they leave high school and then compete again with students from other parts of the island, other parts of the nation, and ultimately other parts of the world. So those are where your strategic plan and or academic plan goals come from. And then you have objectives within those student successes for goal 1. Students are engaged, students have academic skills that they need to succeed, students are connected to their school and community to develop the desire for learning. Then goal 2, and I think that's what Joy mentioned, and I'll be speaking a little bit about tonight, staff success. What are the different types of things that we try to bring into the schools so that the staff themselves can be better educated, better understanding, up to date with the modern technology, if you will. And then, of course, goal 3, successful systems of support. Not just technology, but all aspects of it, whether it be through the partnerships that we have or whatever the case might be, is we want to make sure that our students are ready. The buzzwords or key theme that goes throughout the state of Hawaii right now is college and career readiness. And you'll be hearing more and more about that. Got to get our students ready for college, and not all go to college initially, and get them ready for the careers that they may be looking into. Okay? Now, Joy talked a little bit about this. This is our academic plan. Bring it in a little bit here. And it's not long, but it talks a little bit about how we at Hilo High School are going to be addressing the various concerns that we're trying to get across to our students and preparing them for the next level. So I know you can't see it. It's kind of difficult unless I just kind of bring it up a little closer. But you're going to see, for example, under Goal 1, this thing's not working today for some reason. Under Goal 1, you see student success. Objective 1A, students are engaged and ready to learn. We look at some targets in terms of absenteeism. We feel that if kids are in school, they're going to do a lot better. So we have to address those kinds of absenteeisms that we're experiencing right now. Now, how are we going to acknowledge that, how we're going to deal with it, is based on the strategies or the targets that you see and the strategies we're going to use. At the bottom, you look at the enabling activities, those things that we're going to be looking at in order to get our students to the next level. And then it works its way over. In terms of the outcomes that we anticipate receiving, who's taking the lead in those particular things, who's the participants, and if there's any expenditure, what it's going to take to pay for those kinds of programs. So as you look through the academic plan, you'll get a better understanding of what we're trying to do here at the school. All schools' academic plans online, so you could look at Waiakea's, you could look at Pohoa's, you could even look at Iolani's for that matter. But the point is you'll see what they're trying to develop. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of what we're trying to do with the new strategic plan. The state of Hawaii came out with what they call the ESEA Flexibility Plan. I don't know how to say this any other way except when the state of Hawaii won the award for Race to the Top, there was a plan that they had to submit. And the feds, the federal government, had to approve that plan. And it was pretty large. It was a very, very thick document, but it explained what the zone schools would need to do and eventually all schools would need to do. But in the interim, meaning that while they're working, these various complexes are working in the zones and working towards the plan that they established, we couldn't leave the rest of the schools out of the mix. So this was developed. It's called the SEA Flexibility Plan. And really what this is it's an outline of all the various aspects of what's going to make education happen in the state of Hawaii. That also is online. So I won't take too much time from this to kind of go through that with you. But I will say that it's 300 plus something pages long. You can cut to the chase and go right to what the state of Hawaii had selected, and it was Plan B. Now with that Plan B, they submitted their plan in terms of what all schools would be operating, and that too is waiting for federal approval. So besides Race to the Top, you also have this flexibility plan that's being looked at right now by the federal government. Now, why I'm bringing this up is because we are now embarking on a journey of how to improve instruction. And how we improve instruction is always going to be based on what types of professional developments involved, the quality of teachers that we currently have, and the quality of teachers that we're trying to get into the system. And this is all a big part of it. But the ESEA Flex Plan addresses that in its area, a big part of its areas. It talks about, well, what are we going to do to improve instruction at Hilo High School? And I'm just using that right up front. And so what I'm going to do is kind of turn the pages and not stay too much to it. But the plan really is, the purpose of the Hawaii's new educator effectiveness system is to provide timely information, feedback, and support to help all teachers and leaders be more effective. Of course, Catherine Matayoshi, the author of this, is our superintendent, is also a Hilo High School graduate, so she's got a passion for our school. Matter of fact, last evening she was at the Journey Through the Universe kickoff, which was in Hilo, with the governor and with the mayor. And she again proclaimed, I am a Hilo High School graduate. So there's a lot that we can be proud of. The fact to know that we have a superintendent that is a product of this school. So again, the purpose of this program, this new educator effectiveness system, is just that, is to improve and provide the necessary information, feedback, and support that the teachers and the leaders need. Now, there are, let's see if I can bring this down now. Okay, why do we feel we need the change? Well, an effective teacher, if you look at the top, is the most critical factor in a student's success. Teachers and leaders are our most valuable assets. Existing human capital systems are not sufficient to help teachers and leaders produce better outcomes for students. So we realize we have to look elsewhere in order to make those kinds of improvement. And that might be in the form of grants or whatever that might be. Teaching is complex. Educators deserve better feedback and tools to improve their practice. Again, the whole focus of why we're making these changes to ensure that our teachers are more effective. Now, these are some fears and misconceptions that the teachers themselves need to understand, and I think I've brought that across to our staff. If it weren't for Race to the Top, we would not be doing this. Well, that's not true. The change was coming. It was just a matter of time. We're placing all the blame on teachers for the performance of their students. No, it takes a village to raise a child. It's not just the school itself. Teachers are going to be assessed based solely on test scores. Well, that's how it's been in the past. The Hawaii State Assessment, grade 10, that was the only test that we were measuring teacher effectiveness and student success. And that was just a snapshot. So now we're looking at other ways to ensure that students are learning and teachers are effective in their skills and their trade. The goal is to remove underperforming teachers and leaders. That's not the goal. The goal is to help improve, not to remove. And finally, this initiative is just another in a long line of unconnected reform plans. I think if you were a DOE employee for the last 20-something years, you would always remember the saying, and this too will pass. I'll be very honest with you, I do not think this is going to pass, meaning leave and something new will come in. I think it's going to be improved upon, but the premise, the ideas, the concept of college and career readiness is going to remain with us for an awful long time. Hence, if you look at the strategic plan, it's from 2011 to 2018. The state has looked at about 4 ways on how we're going to be able to hit these targets and to do it. And that's the plan, do, act, and check. So it's a constant cycle, it never changes. We just keep working within each of the quadrants until, again, we go full circle and we come back. So there's always this effort to improve. Now, this is what I needed to speak with you about. This is what the concern right now that you've probably been reading a lot about in the paper. HSTA has got some concerns, and let's see if I can get this thing working. Oh, got it. And what does it all mean? Because the fear is that it's a hatchet system. It's a system that's going to be used to get rid of your worst teachers and all these other things. And it's not really the case. Now, I don't know if you can see that. I don't know what happened. Joy, what did you do to my clicker? That's right. See if I can bring this up. Okay.
Yeah, better.
I'm going to have to come over here. There is a system that I kind of mentioned briefly. It's called the EES system. And it was mentioned, of course, that's educator effectiveness system. And it starts up there at the top. What is the definition of effective teacher? So they're saying there are basically 5 areas that teachers need to become familiar with and actually be able to master. And it starts at the far left: understand the learner and the learning, knows and applies content, practices effective instruction, demonstrates professional responsibility, and student growth and learning. Now, with that understanding, if you could lump these 4 together right here, we're looking at professional practice and responsibilities. We need to put the ball back in the park with the teachers. And once you have that understanding, you're going to be looking at some of the things that I'm going to have to do to ensure that happens, as well as all principals in the state. We're going to have to make more focused classroom observations, and for those of you who have heard of the term or the program, it's called the Charlotte-Danielson model. The zone schools are using it. Hilo Intermediate is presently piloting that program, but it hasn't quite hit the state yet in terms of all schools until next year. I'm also going to have to be able to look at how the students themselves feel about the teachers, and that's called the tripod survey. So students will be able to survey twice a year their teachers. And it's very generic questions. Towards the end of my presentation, I'll show you what those questions basically are. Now, under student growth and learning, we need to build or get data. We have to understand where our children have been and where we want to take them. So we look at this in terms of student growth and learning. We know that we're going to have to be focused on student growth through summative assessment. Summative means that what happens at the end of this particular year, maybe at the end of their 3rd grade year or the end of their 8th grade year. What have they learned and what can they take with them to the next level? And then we'll also be looking at other measurements and assessments that provide us with information. Now, student learner objectives, I just shared this with the PTSA and the SEC. We're piloting this right now at Hilo High School. And what the student learner objectives are is you identify an area in the school that you feel the students really, really need to have some sort of help in. We're finding out that all these years we've been putting a lot of effort in reading. And then, don't get me wrong, reading's important. But we might have put too much emphasis in that and not enough in writing. We're finding out that students that leave high schools, go to a college, let's say, I'll check where my son's going to right now, and he goes to Willamette. He says, Dad, I just am lost. I'm in my freshman year, and I can't do, the professors are ripping me apart because I don't know how to write. And I'm thinking, yeah, but you gained those skills in high school. Well, maybe not to the point that he should have been or where we should have taken him. So we're going to be looking at, in this school, for this year's pilot, writing. And we've got the language arts department, that's the English department, that have already started the pilot. And basically all that is we identify writing, what each teacher's going to have to do in order to bring the student up to a certain level. But we're going to use data in order to determine that. In other words, we'll have to do pre-assessment at the beginning of the year. Give me a writing sample. Let's see what it looks like. In the middle of the year, we'll continually do these formative assessments to see how they're coming along. And then at the end of the year, we give them a final assessment to see if they reach their goal. If not, we start the cycle all over again. So these are the 2 areas that I'm responsible for and the teachers themselves are responsible for. Now keep in mind, this is what we're looking at, is how to develop an effective teacher. Now, going back to professional practice and responsibilities, and we talked about how we're going to be measuring those, we're going to have to look a lot at what the targets are and where we're trying to take the students. The bottom line to all this, and you can start seeing as you're going down on the chart, the teacher effectiveness performance ratings will be as follows: unsatisfactory, marginal, effective, and I don't know if you can see that, but it is highly effective. The state's saying right now for the highly effective teacher, which you can't see right here, is going to be given some sort of reward, monetary if possible. And you're already starting to see that if you saw the newspaper in the last, I'd say, month or so, Hilo Intermediate and a few others, where they're piloting the types of ways to acknowledge teacher effectiveness. And so if the teacher's up in this range, highly effective, that's great. Of course, we're looking for the effective teacher, and we're going to work constantly towards that effort. But when you start looking down here in this area, what is the schools doing? What is the state doing to support us in order to ensure that we can bring these teachers up to the next level? It's a process. It's not going to just end 1 year and everybody's happy. No, because we're constantly trying to evolve into the new types of learnings, the new types of systems that are available. And so that's what we're trying to do. Now, what I'm sharing with you right here really is what I was asked to do. We're piloting the SLOs, but this is all part of the EES, or the Educators Evaluation System. That's all part of the new strategic plan that was received directly out of the federal initiatives in order to improve schools, not just in the state of Hawaii, but all the states that had invested some kind of effort and time into that federal grant. So essentially, what you're looking at is how we're going to improve instruction and the teacher effectiveness as well. Okay. Now, what I wanted to share with you real quick, well, I'll show you this. This was a composite of efforts by the staff themselves and the teachers. We said, what makes up a student of Hilo High School? So we looked at, well, work, we're looking at education, we're looking at the military. I mean, we can't leave anything out. Students have a lot of options available for them. We're looking at the students themselves as they work their way up through the general learner outcomes, through Common Core standards, and the state strategic plan. Well, all of these things in here basically make up that effort. And you might see something in there that might have impressed you when you were in high school, but I know a lot of the students in here probably look exactly at what, oh yeah, okay, I can deal with the ambassadors, or I can deal with Huiana, or even senior project, because all of those efforts put together is what's going to move the students up towards the college and career readiness that we're aiming for. Now, in conclusion, I told you this is going to be condensed. Remember I had presented to you from the EES, the Educator Evaluation System, that one of the things that we'll be looking at is what they call the Student Tripod Survey. Twice a year, students will be able to evaluate the effectiveness of their teachers, and it's going to be in 7 areas. It's going to be under, care. I'm going to bring this up a little bit. It's going to be under care. It's going to be under control. It's going to be under clarify, challenge, flip this over, captivate, confer, and consolidate. And I'll just go through a few with you. Under care, you've got, my teacher in this class makes me feel that he or she really cares about me. Totally untrue at one end, totally true at the other. My teacher seems to know if something is bothering me. Again, you have that span to check off. My teacher really tries to understand how students feel about things. All under care. Now we look at control. I hate the way the students behave in this class. Student behavior in this class is a problem. Students in this class treat the teacher with respect. So they're going to have an opportunity to identify what goes on in that particular classroom, and they're going to be able to identify this. Clarify. My teacher knows when the class understands and when we do not. My teacher has several good ways to explain each topic that we cover in this class. Challenge. My teacher asks questions to be sure we are following along when he or she is teaching. My teacher doesn't let people give up when the work gets hard. In this class, we learn a lot. We learn a lot almost every day. Again, this will be looked at as we're taking a look at the challenge. Captivate. This class does not keep my attention. I get bored. Or my teacher makes lessons interesting. Confer. My teacher wants us to share our thoughts. My teacher gives us time to explain our ideas. My teacher respects my ideas and suggestions. And finally, consolidate. My teacher takes the time to summarize. My teacher checks to make sure we understand what he or she is teaching us. The comments that I get on my work in this class help me understand how to improve. Now, if you can visualize that the student themselves has an opportunity now to share out. No name on it. It's just the student's observation done twice a year, in the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. Now, the teacher themselves will get this information, and then they will take that information and use that to improve their instruction. Believe it or not, people say, oh, that's kind of harsh to handle, but you know what? Sometimes you need to know how you're doing. I think all of us need to know that every now and then in our various occupations, whether it be through an evaluation by your supervisor or by the people that you support or that you're actually responsible for. Right now, the question comes up, and I'm being straight up with you. The big issue with the bargaining unit right now, the union, is that will this survey be used by administrators to put a teacher into a column that is not desirable? And I'm going to tell you straight up, no, it won't be. I will not see these. What I will see, though, is improvement by the teachers if they do, in fact, utilize this survey as to what is being said. Now, I will get an overview. In other words, the students in this particular area feel 19% of the students feel one way or the other, or 18%, or 70% of the students. So I'll have a feeling basically of what, but nothing more than that. Again, we have to remember, it's not about trying to hurt a teacher's efforts, but to improve their efforts. And that's what all the stuff that we're working on is doing. Giving the teachers an opportunity to understand themselves, improve upon their skills and livelihoods, and then take the ball and run with it. And then I provide the support through professional development. Now, if you take all of what I just shared with you, and you place that into the academic plan, it strictly adheres to what we're trying to do here at Hilo High School. It's going to be laborious. It's going to be a challenge for all of us to experience, but I think in the long run, what we're doing is we're going to see a change in how our students learn and how our teachers teach, with the goal of having our students college and career ready. I'm a firm believer in this. I truly do. I've seen changes occur over the years. I being a teacher myself and then working up to now where I'm at. And I tell you what, it's great. It's a great thing. But like anything new, you're going to have to work it through. You're going to have to work closely with your teachers, with your staff, and be there for them. Provide the support that they need, no matter what. You've got to do that. The academic plan will enforce that, because we'll set some monies aside to ensure that the teachers are receiving the professional development they need, and we move on. Now, everything that I shared with you tonight is quick, fast, and to the point. You can review just about everything I shared with you online if you go to the DOE website. I know that's a lot, but I think the bottom line is that you'll have a better feeling for it. I think you'll see your students come home at, maybe around the second quarter of next school year and say, whoa, boy, things are really changing around here. Maybe they won't, but the point is that there will be changes that will occur over time.